Have you ever seriously thought about what it would take to completely transform yourself? I'm not just talking about, changing a few habits here and there, but a total deep down overhaul of who you are. Well, today, we're going to dive into an ancient text, a chapter from Ephesians that gives us this powerful roadmap for exactly that. Let's explore this thing together. It all kicks off with this incredibly bold, almost staggering idea. And it's not just a nice suggestion, it's the core command that everything else is built on. Imitate God. Just let that sink in for a second. And then, live in love. This isn't talking about a mushy feeling. It's about a profound, active way of being in the world. This is the goal, right? The North Star for this whole transformation. So, okay, how in the world do you get there? The source uses this really brilliant and psychologically powerful metaphor to explain this huge shift. It's like changing your clothes. You literally take off the old, dirty, crumpled up garments and put on something brand new. This whole idea frames personal growth not as some one-time fix, but as a daily, super intentional act of becoming. And to make this idea crystal clear, the text sets it up as a direct comparison. It's basically a before and after picture. It lays out two totally distinct paths, two different versions of a person, and it kind of asks you to choose. It's all about a journey from one state of being to another. First things first, we have to get a handle on what we're being asked to leave behind. The text calls this the old, crumpled self. This is our starting point, right? This is the before picture in this whole transformation. So let's take a closer look at what that really means. Now, what's really fascinating here is how specific it gets. The text isn't just saying, hey, don't be a bad person. No, it describes a state of mind, a darkened understanding, hardened hearts. It suggests a life that's just psychologically out of alignment, disconnected from a deeper truth and a real sense of purpose. And of course, this internal state, it shows up in very real external ways. The source says to actively banish these things. We're talking about the kind of bitterness that just poisons relationships, that uncontrollable rage, the slander that tears other people down, and yet even the malicious thoughts we might just keep to ourselves. This is the old self in action. So after you strip all of that away, what do you put on instead? Let's flip over to the other side of the equation and see how this new self is built. This is the active part of the transformation, the putting on of a totally new identity. And here's the core definition. The new self is a life that's modeled directly on the character of God. This breaks down into three key qualities that are so relevant today. Being truthful, which is all about integrity. Being righteous, which is about fairness and justice in how we deal with people. And being holy, which basically means being set apart for a higher purpose. And wow, this just brilliantly illustrates the complete reversal. Just look at that contrast. Darkened understanding gets replaced by truth and integrity. Hardened hearts are replaced by righteousness and fairness. A mind focused on worthless pursuits gets flipped to a life of purpose and love. It's a total reorientation of a person's entire being. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like day to day? Well, the text doesn't leave it in the clouds. It gets incredibly practical about how this new self actually behaves out in the real world. Here are the marching orders. First, speak the truth. Sounds simple, but we all know it's not always easy. Second, deal with your anger constructively. And notice, it doesn't say never be angry. It says to handle it in a way that doesn't fester into bitterness or rage. That's a core skill of emotional regulation right there. Third, avoid rotten words, language that corrupts or tears people down. And finally, the big one, live in a state of sacrificial love, actually putting others first. Now, here's a really crucial point. This whole thing isn't presented like some self-help project you have to perfect all on your own. The text frames it as a partnership. It starts by acknowledging that we're all flawed, which is actually a powerful psychological tool. It frees us from that paralysis of trying to be perfect and instead lets us focus on the potential for transformation, a process that's started and powered by God. So as we start to wrap this up, the final instruction brings everything into the here and now. This isn't a one-and-done decision. It's a constant, moment-by-moment process of renewal. It's about being intentional with every bit of time we have. And where does the energy for such a massive life change come from? The source is very clear. It's not just about gritting your teeth and trying harder. It's about opening yourself up to a spiritual power, to be filled, as the text says, with the Holy Spirit, who is the one who enables this whole transformation.
So that brings us to the final question, really. This ancient text isn't just a piece of history, it's a living challenge. It asks us to make the most of every living and breathing moment. So, what does that mean for you right now, today? What one small choice could you make to put on the new self? That's a powerful question to carry with you.